The golden microphone was still warm when Erin Molan finally broke her silence, but the words that came out weren't the polished PR lines the NRL hierarchy expected. They were a tactical detonation. For years, she was the face of a sports broadcasting revolution, the woman who stood her ground in a boys' club that often felt like a gladiator pit. Yet the latest revelation isn't about a bad day at the office or a social media spat. It's a calculated exposure of a systematic betrayal that goes all the way to the top of the league's power structure, involving a blackballed list that nearly erased her from the history of the game she helped modernize. This isn't just about a feud with a legend, it's about a hidden directive that forced her into a corner where her only options were to disappear or fight back with a truth so ugly it threatens to burn down the very bridge she built. The silence has been replaced by a roar, and the sports inner circle is currently in a state of absolute panic as the first chapter of this hidden history is finally being read aloud. Like and subscribe to all sports updates for the fastest breaking news in the NRL. The weight of the ugly feud has often been simplified as a clash of personalities, but Molan's latest disclosure paints a far more disturbing picture of institutionalized isolation within the commentary box. She details a period where certain legends of the game allegedly refused to look her in the eye during live broadcasts, creating a toxic atmosphere that was intentionally leaked to the press to make her appear difficult to work with. These hidden truths suggest that the friction wasn't an accident, it was a coordinated effort to protect an outdated status quo that viewed her presence as a threat to the traditionalist sanctuary of rugby league. As she peels back the layers of these backstage interactions, we see a woman who was forced to perform in a theater of hostility, where every mistake was catalogued and every success was met with a cold, calculated silence from those who should have been her teammates. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a slow-motion attempt to break a professional spirit through 1,000 small, invisible cuts. The revelation takes a darker turn when Molan touches on the hidden truths regarding the legal battles that have shadowed her career, revealing the immense personal cost of standing up to the giants of the media landscape. She describes nights spent reviewing transcripts and legal advice while the rest of the world slept, fueled by a realization that if she didn't fight this specific battle, the door she opened would be slammed shut for every woman following in her footsteps. The shock comes from the discovery of internal memos that reportedly discussed her marketability in terms that would be considered prehistoric in any other industry, proving that the feud was merely a symptom of a much deeper, more malignant cultural issue. By exposing these documents, she isn't just seeking personal vindication, she is providing a blueprint for how the NRL's media partners have historically managed problematic talent who refuse to stay in their lane. It is a staggering indictment of a culture that celebrates toughness on the field but punishes it in the studio when it wears a different uniform. Sub to all sports updates. Now, beyond the corporate politics, the story enters the realm of raw human storytelling as Erin recounts the moment her young daughter began to see the toll that ugly feud was taking on her mother's soul. This wasn't just a professional hurdle, it was a home-invading parasite that turned her private sanctuary into a war room, with the constant threat of career-ending headlines looming over every family dinner. The revelation that she nearly walked away from the sport entirely at the height of the controversy shows just how close the blackball efforts came to succeeding. She describes the physical symptoms of the stress, the sleeplessness, the hypervigilance, and the feeling of being hunted by an industry she had loved since childhood, creating a narrative of survival that transcends sport. It's the story of a woman who found her voice at the exact moment she was supposed to lose it, turning the hidden truths of her detractors into the fuel for her own ultimate comeback and eventual transition to the news desk. The fallout from these revelations has already begun to ripple through the NRL community, with former players and producers starting to break their own silences in support of her account. This collective unmasking of the hidden truths has turned what was once a private grudge into a public reckoning for the sports media culture, forcing a conversation about accountability that is decades overdue. The surprise for many fans is the level of detail Molan has provided regarding the peace talks that were actually traps, and the mentorships that were actually surveillance, painting a picture of an environment that was as strategic as a grand final game plan. It's a revelation that changes how we view the last decade of sports broadcasting, highlighting the invisible obstacles that were placed in her path by people who smiled for the cameras while sharpening their knives behind her back. This is the ugly side of the glamour, the part of the highlight reel that never makes it to the screen, and it is absolutely captivating in its honesty. The strategic brilliance of Molan's revelation lies in her refusal to play the victim, instead framing the entire saga as a necessary war for the soul of sports journalism. She explains how the ugly feud was weaponized by third parties to distract from the real issues of pay equity and diversity within the commentary ranks, creating a catfight narrative that served the interests of the powerful. By stripping away the tabloid headlines and focusing on the structural hidden truths, she has reclaimed her story from the people who tried to write her ending for her. The shock for the NIL establishment is that she kept the receipts, dates, times, and names that turn her revelation from a mere story into a documented history of professional survival. It is a masterful move that has left her former rivals looking small and the industry leaders looking complicit in a culture of bullying that they publicly claim to oppose. As the dust begins to settle on this latest bombshell, the focus shifts to what this means for the future of the NIL's relationship with its female broadcasters and the legacy of those involved in the original feud. The revelation has effectively ruined the clean-cut image of several legendary figures, exposing a side of their personalities that clashes violently with their lovable rogue personas. For Molan, the truth has become a form of professional armor, protecting her as she navigates the next phase of her career with a transparency that was previously impossible. The storytelling here isn't just about the past, it's a warning to the future, a signal that the era of hidden truths is over and that the ugly side of the game will no longer be tolerated in the shadows. The impact of her words is being felt in boardrooms across Sydney, where the blackball tactics of the past are being hurriedly scrubbed from the playbook in the face of this unprecedented public exposure. The brutal nature of her revelation is found in the simple, undeniable logic of her journey, that you can be the most prepared, the most talented, and the most passionate person in the room, and you can still be targeted for destruction if you don't fit a specific, narrow mold. This is the lesson she is passing on to the next generation of sports journalists, that the feud wasn't about her, but about what she represented. By sharing the hidden truths, she is weaponizing the tactics used against her, ensuring that the next time an ugly feud is manufactured, the audience will know exactly what is happening behind the curtain. It is a powerful, perhaps final, act of defiance that cements her place as one of the most significant figures in the history of Australian sports media, not just for what she did on camera, but for what she survived off it. The shockwaves are still spreading, and the truth, as it turns out, is much more compelling than the fiction we were sold for years. In the final analysis, Erin Molan's revelation serves as a reminder that the most dangerous thing in rugby league isn't a high tackle or a blindside hit, it's a woman with a memory like an elephant and the courage to use it. The ugly feud may have been the catalyst, but the hidden truths are the legacy, providing a stark look at the cost of progress in a world that is often dragged kicking and screaming into the present. As she moves forward, the silence that once threatened to swallow her career has been replaced by a conversation that she is firmly in control of, proving that the best revenge isn't just living well, but telling the truth until the people who lied have nowhere left to hide. The saga of the hidden truths is far from over, but for the first time in a long time, the person holding the microphone is the only one who knows exactly what happens next. The game has changed, the rules have been rewritten, and Erin Molan is the one holding the pen. Stay tuned to all sports updates for the final verdict on the Erin Molan saga. Would you like me to look into the specific legal documents Erin Molan referenced or provide a timeline of her biggest broadcast clashes?